right, so to MIP an MRA of the carotids, you need to click in this viewer window over here. You need to click on the top exam. These right here are your exams, and displaying below that right down here would be your sequences. So you click on the most recent exam. You can see down here a preview of the images. Now you click on the 3D time of flight for the MRA of the head. Over here in session apps, instead of viewer like you would normally do to view your images, you go down here to IVI, and this provides a series of functions. First off, we're going to window this. Let's make it darker. There you go. I'm going to click this little icon right here, enlarge view, full screen essentially, and now we're going to start MIPing, is what techs call it. So we're going to click right here on the scissors, and we're going to start cutting out structures. So before I get started, here we could see the carotid arteries right here, carotid siphon right there coursing through the carotid canal and whatnot, carotid arteries. Now down here you could see the vertebral arteries right there and right here, and they converge forming the basilar artery right there. You could see a couple of the arteries arising from that as well, which we will get into later. Now where the carotids end up here are the middle cerebral arteries right there, and the anterior cerebral arteries, which course right through here, and then bilaterally, so you can see the middle cerebral right there, right through there, and all of this, all of its branches, and then you can see the anterior cerebral right there. Now connecting the anterior to the posterior cow, or circle of Willis. So up here, the anterior circle of Willis consists of the carotids, middle cerebral, anterior cerebral, and even this tiny little artery connecting the bilateral or anterior cerebral arteries. Right here, this is the communicating artery, the anterior communicating artery. So all of those structures comprise the anterior circle of Willis. Now the posterior circle of Willis consists of the vertebral arteries converging and forming the basilar, and the basilar giving rise to the posterior cerebral, as well as many other smaller structures. Now connecting the anterior circle of Willis to the posterior circle of Willis is the posterior communicating artery, which is normally bilateral. However, we cannot see that on this side. Looks like we may have the very, very start of it right there. Okay, so let's start MIPing. Up here we could see superior view, inferior view, anterior view, posterior, left and right views. So those will come in handy. I'm going to start off with the posterior view, and I'm going to start cutting out whatever I feel is unnecessary. If you're unsure of an artery, don't cut it. It's as simple as that. Oops, messed that one up, went right through the middle cerebral artery right there, so let's clear that. Messed up again, almost nicked the carotid. Not sure about that guy yet. I will need to see it in a different plane. So I don't like that mouse pad. Okay, so let's do a left or right view, basically just a sagittal view. Start cutting out unwanted structures. Actually, let's take a look at that. Nope, I do not need those. I'll just cut it out right here, just to make it simple. this back here. Okay, let's do a superior view. Let's start. Start cutting out all of the tissue that is unnecessary. We only want the cerebral veins. There are two different types of methods of MIPing. You have the type of MIPing where you leave more gray area, and then you have the type of MIPing where technologists like to cut out all of the gray area. So it depends. Technologists who know more anatomy tend to MIP out a lot more than technologists who don't. So that is up to you guys once you guys get comfortable with that. Unfortunate. If you're unsure of arteries, don't cut them. You also have the cut outside function, which is nice, which I will use later. And you can also cut everything in here and whatnot if you needed or felt the need. However, I'm not going to. Let's cut all this out right here. Find it just distracting, so I don't really want that in there. So here's a little better MIP. So essentially we have the carotids coursing through here. This is a superior oblique view. Carotids right there giving rise to the middle cerebral arteries and all of their branches, middle cerebral arteries and all of their branches, as well as the anterior cerebral artery, which courses up that way and right there, with the anterior communicating artery right there. If we look from the side, you could see these are the anterior cerebral arteries right here, and all of their branches and whatnot. Now, that comprises the anterior circle of Willis, okay? Now next we have the posterior circle of Willis, which are the vertebral arteries right here, converging to form the basilar artery, the superior cerebellar artery right there, right here, the anterior cerebellar artery right there, and the posterior cerebellar artery would be down here. I'm not sure if I cut it off or if it just isn't present. And that is the as well as the posterior cerebral arteries right there. That comprises the posterior circle of Willis. So typically you want to MIP out everything except for the whole cow. Then you can click save and recall, and you drag it down right here, and now we have this save point. Now we go to batch. You typically want to move this out of the way, and you will select right here MRA brain. Often you can even type in some sort of description or name. You can do whole cow sorry about that, caps lock. Whole cow spin, and we put it on right, and then we click OK. And this is how it will look. Okay, it literally spins it. Now we select the down arrow, type in whole cow tumble, and you click OK. And if you want to see what it looks like, it would look like this. Okay. Now, next, what we are going to do is we're going to go back to the scissors, and we're going to do an anterior cow. So I'm trying not to cut out this little branch of the anterior cerebral, but sometimes there's nothing you can do. I will try to minimize that. So now we're going to cut right in between the carotids and the posterior cerebral, right there. Try to minimize the amount I cut out of the anterior cerebral. Cut right there here. Oops. Did not want to cut that guy right there. I didn't see that before. Let's turn this to the side just ever so slightly. There we go. Okay. Let's go back through. Okay. We'll cut inside. Now we have the anterior circle of Willis, just the carotids, middle cerebral, anterior cerebral, and the anterior communicating. So again, I'll go through and kind of MIP this out because typically you will have a lot more gray space. Keep in mind, all the gray that I'm cutting out is actually brain tissue. It's just saturated due to it being within the slab and the time of flight, which is based off of entry slice phenomenon. Basically, all of the tissue within the 3D slab receives multiple RF pulses and therefore becomes saturated, whereas protons flowing into the volume haven't received any until that initial pulse they receive traveling into the volume, and therefore they appear bright. And therefore time of flight permits us to visualize blood vessels without the need for contrast. So time of flight sequences are based on entry slice phenomenon. And I could continue cutting closer to the arteries and whatnot, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to. So now I'm going to save and recall, and I'm going to add another checkpoint. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to batch. Oops. Posterior view, let's grab this little square right here. I want to move it out of the way because these will be in the images. So let's click to the right, MRA brain yet again, anterior cow spin, and we will spin it. If you want to view it, it's right here. Okay. Now, I would like to say the pituitary gland was right here. You want to cut that out. And sometimes, if we look at it from the side, you can see the orbits and whatnot over here. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the posterior view, and I'm going to click the down arrow, and I'm going to do a anterior cow tumble. Okay, and if you want to view that, you can click preview. This is what it looks like. Okay. So now, to save time, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to another section. A lot of radiologists like the carotids. So I'm going to do that. Instead of cut inside, I'll just do cut outside. Get rid of that. Get rid of the left carotid over here. So now we have the carotid. I'm sorry, the right carotid. Now we're going, you don't have to batch it, but I like to do just because, or I'm sorry, checkpoint it. Now I'll do batch. For carotids, you only need to do spin. So I'll do left carotid, spin. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to come back to that save checkpoint, the anterior, bring that back, and now we will cut out the other side. It doesn't matter if you do cut outside or cut inside, either one works. So for example, over here I'll do cut inside instead. All right? Again, you could keep MIPing if you wanted, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to MIP that much. Okay, so I saved it as a checkpoint. It's still on spin. You want to move it outside of the image. And now I will type in right carotid spin. And now you can go to preview. You could watch that if you want. So far we did the whole cow spin, whole cow tumble, anterior cow spin, anterior cow tumble, left carotid spin, right carotid spin, and now we have the posterior cow spin and posterior cow tumble, which I will show you right now. So 8 total, typically what radiologists like to ask for. So I'm going to bring up the whole cow again, the whole circle of Willis. Okay, I'm going to come back to scissors, and I'm going to do this again. However, this time I don't have to worry about cutting out the anterior cerebral artery, so I can go a little farther than I was last time. That's the vertebral artery right there. Oops. Messed that one up. Go. So now we can check it out and all of the other planes, and we can get rid of all of the brain tissue surrounding the vertebral arteries, all of this gray matter, or I'm sorry, all of this gray looking matter within these images. It's not gray matter within the brain. If anything, it's white matter, but still. So I did clip a little bit of this artery right here. Did clip that guy just a little bit. Okay. too close. I'm not used to this mouse. And here we have the posterior cow. So if we look at it from the back, you can see the vertebral arteries converging to form the basilar. The posterior inferior cerebellar artery would be down here. This is the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. This is the superior cerebellar artery, and this is the posterior cerebral artery with all of its branches. Okay, so now we would checkpoint this or save it. And we can go to batch, yet again, move this out of the way. Type in here, posterior cow spin. Then we will do a tumble as well. Okay. And that appears like this. That is MIPing. You just want to make sure you have it in the right plane. Yeah, it was in the posterior view. And then we could come back over here and we could see that we have whole cow spin, whole cow tumble right here. Okay, anterior cow spin, anterior cow tumble, left carotid spin, right carotid spin, posterior cow spin, and posterior cow tumble. Always confirm that you have all of them first because you don't want to exit out of this before confirming that you have all of your MIPs.